Following Theresa May's humiliation with the EU rejecting her Chequers plan, a pro-Brexit think tank has offered alternative proposals for a Canada-style free trade deal. That's as the Labour Party is to vote on keeping all Brexit options on the table. RTK's Isa Ali joins me now for more on this. So Isa, what's in this plan?
Well, this has been a long-awaited report by the Institute of Economic Affairs, and in it they lay out their own alternative to the government's Chequers plan, and in it really they are full of criticism, saying that Theresa May has deviated away from promises she made, and that the type of closeness that Chequers recommends, the type of close relationship it advocates with the EU after Brexit, as they put it, is something which is stopping or would stop Britain from being able to enjoy the so-called benefits that arise out of Brexit. Now, what are some of the recommendations put forth in this report? Now, the first one are trade and regulations, the IEA calling for the elimination of tariffs and quotas on all products that the UK doesn't produce. And also, along the Irish border, they want to see checks taking place away from the border from things like medicines. And on immigration as well, they want to see an end to freedom of movement, perhaps unsurprisingly there. They want to replace it with a system which they say will analyse the benefits of both economic and socially of migration. Now, of course, it's perhaps unsurprising to see that this plan has the support of hard Brexiteers like Jacob Rees-Mogg and the former Brexit Secretary David Davis. And they say that it's only this plan that will deliver the benefits of Brexit.
We need to reset the negotiations. We're currently bluntly in a cul-de-sac. It's probably true to say that if this had been the right place, I'd still be in government today. So we need to take a model like this. We need to grasp the Brexit prize. We need to act properly for the enormous benefits we had from a proper free trade policy.
The key to it, to my mind, is that it is deliverable. Bear in mind, as David says, this has been offered to us by the Commission. They have offered us the best trade deal they have done with any country ever in the world. So if you want to call it Canada Plus or Super Canada or Super Califragilistic, the audacious Canada, that is what is being aimed at and it's being offered. As long as you can solve the Northern Ireland question, which I think the ERG did a week or so ago. So you've got Northern Ireland solved, you've got a free trade deal, you've got something that is deliverable.
So Mr. Rees-Mogg there using the term Canada Plus, saying that it would be very similar to the type of deal which Canada has struck with the EU. It keeps them out of EU regulations and also eliminates trade tariffs on goods. But the current Brexit Secretary, Dominic Raab, he's perhaps got ahead of those Brexiteers, saying that their plan, this so-called Canada Plus option, simply isn't one that the government is considering.
And Isa, what does Labour make of all of this at the moment?
Well, the opposition are holding the main opposition party holding their conference in Liverpool at the moment, and one of the main issues out of many which is dominating the agenda up there is Brexit, and of course the opportunity or the potential of a second referendum, and Labour members will be voting tomorrow to potentially keep all options on the table, which could keep the possibility of a second referendum alive. But the Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, he's saying that any new referendum shouldn't have the option to remain as one of the potential outcomes, but should merely be a referendum on the terms of Brexit. And he was very clear in any case that the government, the Tories that is, should step aside and let Labour take over the negotiating process.
I just say to the Tories, just in the interest of the country, get out of the way and let us get on with securing a way forward. A way forward that will protect our economy, our jobs, and the standard of living of our people. If they don't do that, you know what my preference is. I want a general election. I want it soon. And we're keeping all the options open for democratic engagement on the table. But look, I feel so strongly that these Tories should face the people. Face the people for the way in which they've recklessly put our country's future at risk over the last 2 years. More interested in fighting each other than fighting for this country.
Now, if Mr. McDonnell is one of those saying that the option to remain isn't a possibility, well, there are differences even within the shadow cabinet. Shadow Brexit Secretary Keir Starmer saying that actually they couldn't take the option of remaining off the table, and that Labour were deliberately not being fully upfront with their position until the fog has cleared. And Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn saying that he'll be bound by whatever tomorrow's vote decides. Now, there have also been a release of a number of government documents about preparations in the event of a no deal, and some of them point out to perhaps quite worrying tendencies. Flights would be disrupted between the UK and the EU in the event of a no deal. If somebody wishes to take their pets from the EU to the UK, or vice versa, from the UK to the EU, well, they would have to plan ahead by up to 4 months, or at least 4 months, to avoid any major disruption. And also, bus and coach services could immediately be ceased in the event of a no deal. So, plenty still to thrash out if we're to avoid that scenario.
Isa, thank you very much for that. Well, earlier I spoke to Professor John Ryan, senior partner at the consultancy firm Brexit Partners. He told me that despite its preparations, the government is peering over the cliff edge into a no-deal Brexit.
All these papers are talking about problems that might happen in terms of haulage, in terms of airline traffic, and in many other areas. But in those papers, there are no solutions. And there is no planning, there's no contingency planning, there is no idea what we would do if we actually encountered that. So no deal won't go anywhere because Parliament won't allow it to go anywhere, and it's also changing, it's frightening the Labour Party into being a bit more proactive and saying, look, we need a general election to deal with this, or we may, if we can't get a general election, have a second referendum.
So you help companies, don't you, plan for Brexit?
Yeah.
Well, if the government's got no idea, how do you have an idea? What do you say to these companies?
Well, you have to deal with different scenarios and actually have a contingency to deal with all the different possibilities. And one of those possibilities is that there would be no deal, even though I've said that, you know, the Parliament would probably go against that. You still have to get your ducks in line in terms of some of the other issues that may be looked at in terms of supply chains for manufacturing.
But we could have a complete political change. Jeremy Corbyn, he wants a general election. So if there's any deal is voted down in Parliament, then we could result in a Labour government perhaps getting in?
We could do. I mean, but they need to get clear about where they're going with Brexit, because on the one hand, quite a lot of the membership would like a second vote. People within Corbyn's orbit are not too keen on that particular.
They want to vote on the terms, don't they?
Yes, they do. They do.
But should the public have a vote on whether we stay in or out? Simple as that.
And no one is totally clear about where this is going. The people's vote. Well, what does that actually mean? Do we look at that we don't have a no exit, we don't have checkers, and we look at something else, or do we look at a rerun of the June 2016 referendum, which is going to cause a lot of difficulties because people in many areas will say, well, why are we doing that again?
Well, for more on this, I'm now joined by Dr. Jamie White, Director of Research at the Institute of Economic Affairs. Jamie, your organisation, the report you come up with has been endorsed by the likes of Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson, likening it to the Canada deal, which of course took up to 9 years to sort out. We've only got 6 months to go. We haven't got enough time to put forward your deal.
Well, one of the advantages in the case of the UK trying to negotiate such a deal is that because we've been in the European Union, we start with perfect regulatory harmonisation. And so that all that would be required would be an understanding about how future divergences would be managed. So it's actually a much easier starting point for the UK. I mean, it's a bit like, you know, you've been married to someone for a long time, you're going to divorce, and then but you want to keep some of the arrangements roughly the same. And so, you know, that's that's easier than starting from scratch.
Oh, but interesting. Some would say Canada was never part of the EU. The EU, Brussels, has accepted the Canada deal, but would they really accept a similar deal to a country that wants to leave the EU?
Well, the reason that you accept the deals is that they're mutually beneficial. Free trade benefits both parties to it. So, apart from what you might call spite or signalling to other countries that they'd better not leave, it would be in the interests of the European Union to negotiate a free trade deal with the UK.
And, of course, this is all about a trade deal. It doesn't really take into account all the other issues on EU membership, does it? For example, security, and also only partly covers services. So it's not that just all-in-one answer solution that we're looking for, is it?
Well, the free movement, on this plan, the UK would be leaving the customs union and leaving the single market. This plan is mainly concerned with economic matters. Then, having done that, becoming what you might call a third nation, like Canada, then we want to have free trade with the European Union. Now, take defence and other issues like that. You could come to different answers about defence, both of which are consistent with this plan. So the plan isn't supposed to cover every aspect of the relationship between the United Kingdom and the EU after Brexit, but it's supposed to cover really economic issues, and especially those concerning trade.
Sure, free trade with Europe, and of course allowing trade globally as well.
Right. Well,
but doesn't Theresa May say the Chequers plan will allow us to trade globally?
No. This is the point of criticism that was mentioned earlier of the Chequers plan. The Chequers plan basically means that the UK continues to automatically get European Union regulation around goods. That would be an impediment to the UK negotiating free trade deals with other countries, because you can't enter. These deals almost always involve changes to your domestic regulations, the way you regulate trade. If you're not in a position to negotiate such changes, you can't enter into these negotiations. They're pointless. There's a section in the report on this. So the main idea of the proposal is that Brexit represents a great opportunity for the United Kingdom to improve its own regulatory environment and to enter into free trade agreements with third countries. If we do the Chequers deal, which means that we inherit directly from the UK, from the EU, their goods regulations, we lose the opportunity to take advantage of those benefits. So that's the basic idea.
When did your institute come up with this idea? Surely you had all this way before now, because now we're facing a no-deal scenario where literally the papers now are warning us from the government that could lead to cancellation or postponement, or indeed, the ending of flights, for example, to this country, isolating us.
Well, one point of clarification is that we don't have a corporate view, but the ideas here have been expressed by Shankar Singh, who was the main author of the report. Over the last 2 years, I personally have expressed these kinds of views. So we have been expressing these ideas. The difference now is that we've put it all together into one big report that's about 150 pages long. But these aren't new ideas. We have been making these kinds of suggestions for quite some time.
Will it make any difference? Is it too late? Just briefly, what is going to happen, Jamie White?
Well, I think whether or not
we need an answer.
Though we're not involved in any way in what you might call political machinations, we're a think tank. I think that whether or not these ideas get accepted will depend really on the internal politics of the Conservative Party.
Dr. Jamie White, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you on this. Thanks.